gift session. And today we are very, very fortunate to have Erik Stern, making sure I don't forget anyone, Erik Stern, Adam Johnston, Julian Chen, and Rachel Bachman talking to us about some interdisciplinary projects that they have done together. And so I'm very much looking forward to them sharing their gift with us. So I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll jump right at it first.
Okay. So thanks for coming. I know back many years ago, I was in Pauline's position and I would post some of these things and no one would come. So this is really great that people actually come to these kinds of programs. We have a variety of things to show you, to document, and kind of create a discussion around interdisciplinary things between math and dance, as well as a project I've been working with Erik with science and dance, and we'll show you how you can get tickets to those kinds of things in due time. But just to kind of give us a sense of what kind of things could you put in your head, we'll start with a quick video, and I'll also let you know you can see some of these videos and other snippets at our webpage, weaver.edu/body-in-motion, which is the production that will debut for the public Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, or Dance Science Fest, although it's the same place. But let me show you quickly what that video looks like. And this is my dance debut. This is a duet. If you look carefully, you can see my contribution.
So it's a trio that includes the chord.
Right. It's a dancer, an inanimate object, and a physicist. That's in hierarchical order. So to give you kind of a sense of what some of this looks like. This is the intro of the show. You get to see some forces involved, some motion involved, some wave motion, some transfer of energy, all these things. Well, the physicists, they're lying down on the stage, which is how I teach most of my classes, actually. So that gives you a taste of the beginnings of a dance science project and, well, where the dance science project has gone in terms of the performance. And we'll refer to other things within that as well. But I'll turn this over to Julian to kind of introduce some of what the math dance partnership looks like, so you have a taste of that.
So I think it's a little bit hard to say, but what I'm going to describe to you is kind of going to be more fragment-ish, because if you want to know what it is that we did, we'll have to show you, and we will. Erik will show us a brief activity. But I'll try my best to describe it. It's like trying to put words into a picture. Like the words just don't describe the picture all the time. So here are some of my thoughts. Okay. So everything that we did was more or less centered on a creative arts activity. And all of them were mathematically themed. One of the things that I liked most about this was that I have this item down here, dealing with anxiety, and we've had a lot of people who were afraid of math in our classroom. And I think in the first week of teaching them, our first day was just an intro, because we could tell that a lot of these people were afraid, but I'm not afraid to say this, we had a no shit moment. Like, we had spent the summer planning for this course, but nothing prepared us for that first week. Then we realized, like, there were a lot of things that we needed to do, and we started to do those things. But one of the things that I liked was that they're all mathematically themed, and they had to do problem solving in groups. But because there was something, an activity that they had to do, they could not say, I cannot do math. Like, they always had to try something. The willingness to experiment was key to the success in this course. Like, during the first week, we had one student who would not, when she did the dance, she could do the dance just fine. But then when it came time to do the math activity, the math group work in a group, she would literally freeze up. And I'd say, well, what happens if you just try this value? And she would say, I don't know. And it would be like multiplying some numbers. And so that was very scary. But then I could reference her to an activity that we did. And I said, well, what did we do in that activity? And she could say it, she could describe it. And so in that way, like, I feel like we made people do something. It was a very slow evolution, but we got people to do things. So we transitioned from an activity to a group work, which was focusing on problem solving. And we had to have the philosophy of not being afraid to make a mistake. And that was probably, like, I'm very proud of that accomplishment. I think Erik worked tirelessly on that. But, like, the atmosphere in which these students learned was key, I think, to their learning, and coming from being afraid to work and try things. But it was extremely successful in overcoming that fear, and I think that's a huge accomplishment. We had originally planned to have short lectures to highlight the activities. We did that, but we put slightly more emphasis on student problem solving and student doing. Okay. But our philosophy, in some sense, was more is less, because there was a lot to cover and there was a lot to do. So just understanding, like, the correspondence between the dance activity or the math activity, understanding one of those two aspects, there is a lot of time involved in that. So we found that there was definitely some stuff that we had to emphasize more to get, and what we had to emphasize more of was the connection between the math and the dance. So, for example, one thing that we had to do was we had students take creative thinking, critical thinking, and apply it in a dance situation. So, example, how do you know what qualities of movement to have or exclude in a type of activity? So there was one lecture in which we were describing a fluid motion or a rigid motion, and Erik was having us dance, and he demonstrated, well, would a rigid motion be like this, or would it be more smooth like this? And so applying that critical thinking skill took place both in the math and the dance. So should we try this in our math, or should we try this in our math? And I think Rachel may say something about that. But we were trying to apply critical thinking in both fields. So I really want to emphasize that some of the things that I think we did well were the creative arts activity, and we spent a lot of time bridging the gap between the math and the dance. That's probably where we spent our most amount of time. A lot of people say, and this is one of my challenges here that I listed, is course coverage and time management. We spent a lot of time emphasizing the connection between math and dance and the transitions. And a lot of people say, well, a 3-credit class here plus a 3-credit class here equals a 6-credit class. But what a lot of people forget to account for is the time that you have to spend bridging the connections. And that took a lot of effort. But one in which we did well. One of the other challenges that I listed here was the entry level of the students. I've already discussed that. And our lectures became a little bit more group work oriented. So by the end of the class though, students were able to understand more and more lecture, but their learning style was more activity based. And our whole theme was to learn by trying or experimenting with an idea. And the last one I have there was workload, and that was just how time consuming neither me nor Erik understood what effort we would have to put in until that first week. I think we worked most weekends on this course, so it was extremely time consuming. So I wanted to emphasize that I basically kind of talked in fragments about some of this stuff. And I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to actually see what it's about. So maybe some of these words will make sense, like bridging the gap between the math and the dance, and learning by doing something. So Erik's going to briefly lead us through one of our activities.
Aren't you excited? Who's afraid? Good. Now, I don't want you to be afraid, but one of the interesting things about that is to realize how students feel every day, especially in math classes. But I'm going to be very gentle, I promise. So everybody stand up and get away from the chairs. I'm going to pack an hour lesson into 10 minutes, so it's going to be totally stripped down, streamlined. I also, what a joy it's been to work with Julian and Rachel and Adam this year on 2 separate projects, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that a lot of the work that Rachel, Julian, and I did was based on a book that my colleague and I, and a third colleague, Scott King, who's a world famous puzzle designer, have done for 25 years, and the book is one of the outgrowths of performances and workshops that we do connecting mathematics and those. So everybody, feet far apart, breath in, and just come up and reach up. Good. And then I'm gonna put both hands if you could. Then I'm gonna clip the strings holding you there, and it's just gonna drop. And just go ahead. You're gonna drop and bend your legs. So very, very quickly, I would spend half an hour doing this, but I want you to just move back and forth on your legs. Good. Now I want you to explore the space with one leg. And you can put it down if you need to. Other leg. As we're doing this, if the drum stops suddenly, you have to stop wherever you are. Good. Now we're going to go back to on 2 feet, and we're going to just play with bending our legs. 1 leg, 2 legs, also the positions of the feet. Just play with the positions of the feet. Good. So we're going to play a quick little game. You've already done a shape when I said freeze. So I'm basically going to say what touches the floor, and I'll do a little flourish. And by then you're going to be in some shape that fits that category. So if I say 2 feet, there'll be a little flourish, and then you'll be in some shape. If I say 2 feet 3 times in a row, what do you think I want?
2 feet.
What? Different. So that requires that you have to analyze what you did. If you go here and you say, well, 2 feet again, and you do this, well, it's like you haven't analyzed what you've done. You might say, well, left is straight, right is bent, so maybe I'll switch that, and change it, or I change my facing, or change. In other words, so you have to change something. So it's really a physical game about parameters, and your analysis of the parameters you're doing. 2 feet. 2 feet, different. Challenge yourself. 2 feet. 2 feet. Excellent. Excellent. So now normally I do that, and I do 1 foot, 1 hand, 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 hand, so that everybody can laugh. Unless there's a gymnast who will do it, etc. Yes? But we go through that for quite a while. And then I say, okay, review all the shapes you just made and pick one. Well, you made about 4. Pick one of the shapes you just made. Right now. And go into it. See if you can remember that. Now, normally what we would do, good. Now come out of that slowly. Now go back into it more quickly. Come out of it slowly. Good. Now normally we would play with these. We'd have shapes of all different sorts. Then we would play with ways to get into and out of the shape. So rather than making up a shape, we're actually making up a move. But we're going to stick to shape right now. And actually we're going to make a little sequence that's our class sequence of 4 shapes. So I'm going to divide the room. The pole is the divider. So just stay where you are. This half, everybody go into your shape. Go. And come out of it. This half, go into your shape. And come out. One more time. This half. And this half. Good, so we're going to make up a little sequence. Show us your shape. Everybody, what's your name? Colleen. I know, I'm just making sure everybody knows. We have Colleen's shape. Good. Everybody do Colleen's shape. Could you face this way, Colleen? Everybody do Colleen's shape. Which foot is crossed in front of what? Right in front of left. Good. And, good, everybody rest. Let's see this half again. Show me your shapes. You, sir, what's your name?
Barrett.
Barrett. Barrett, come here and show us your shape. Okay. Go ahead and go. There we go. Which leg is bent? Left. So everybody, let's do Barrett's shape. Left arm is bent. Yes? Good. So we're going to go from Colleen's shape. How do we want to get it? Somebody give me a transition into Barrett's shape. What'd you say? You want to spin out of it? All right. So if you do, be careful about carpet because it's carpet has a lot of friction, and so you don't want to twist your knee. But she has a great idea where you go like this. Yes? She said it. We have to do it. Yes? Thank God she didn't say, backflip. We're here. You spin, left leg bends, right extends, and we're here. Yes? Good. And stay here. This half, do your shapes. This half, go. Tom, what you got there? No, it's too close to this one. Sorry, my bad. No, you know what? It'll make for an easy transition. So Tom, come up here. No, we can't. Oh, okay, do the other side then. Good. So he's going to switch it. He's going to from left to right. So if you can't do this, you adjust. If you can't bend your leg that far, fine. But he's down here like this. Yes? So that's Tom's shape. Let's go from Barrett's to Tom's. How do you want to transition? Just switch, slide? You mean shift?
Shift.
Not slide. I mean, good shot, slide. Anybody want to slide? No. Okay. So we're just going to shift. Hand down here. All right, let's go through it. We have done. And we have done. And we have done. Good. Everybody else on this side, show me your shapes. Go. We'll do the superpower shape. Go ahead. Come up here. Superpower shape. Now, normally with kids, these would be moves, so we'd be starting to collect a bunch of moves. Does that make sense? So, Catherine has given us that shape. So we're here. How do we want? Somebody want to tell us how to get from here to Catherine's shape?
Jump up.
Jump up. Jump like this way. Like how about if we go like this?
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to go from here. We move this way to there. Right? Good. Can you go through all 4? I'll play. Ready?
Play slow.
Play slow. Thank you. And wait, so first thing you have to do is cross your leg and get into the shape. Ready? Go. Now turn into Barrett's shape. Now transfer into Tom's. Now move and jump to Catherine's. Superhero. Good. Do we have those? Normally I'd write them on. There'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. We'd have the names of each people, and we'd have the class would make up a name. Whatever, lamppost, or, ninja, or superhero. Whatever. They make up, whatever, Irish ninja, whatever. They come up with something. Yeah, so, and it's actually fun. That's part of the memorizing. Everybody get in groups of 3 or 4, quickly. Just real quick. Good, you can join. Good. Good. So here's my question. First of all, is this the only order these 4 can go in?
No.
Good. You will make up a new order and you will perform it. You will make up a new order for these 4 and you will get ready to perform it. You have 2 minutes. Go. Go.
Paris.
2 minutes.
New order, so we go superhero first. Another just other order.
All right, so it'll be a duet.
All right. So yeah.
Pick the order and practice.
We're gonna start with down all the way. Superhero. Go down.
I guess the advantage is going to be fast is that you can run. Perfect preparation. Hey, it's over. Punishment. A long-term punishment. All right, here we go. We're ready? That's okay. We got to do what you can. So I'm going incredibly fast. You're being very, very generous about it. Don't worry about it. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4, Group 5. We are now part of one large dance, so don't applaud after each group. Applaud after it's all done. Understood? And this dance is just these shape sequences, so we will be good audiences and watch, not practice while they're doing it. Yes? Do we understand? When I start playing drum, they go. When they're done, who's 2? 3. Yeah, go 3, 4, 5. Here we go.
Oh no. That's right. Glad we ended on that. Yeah.
So I'm going to zoom through a couple things and then turn it over to Rachel. First is, I would like somebody to say something about this experience of making up the shapes and working with groups and doing the problem solving. Anything that you noticed. It could be I hated it. It could be there was something I learned that I never, just some observation about the process. Yes?
Getting started on it is a little awkward. That feeling of embarrassment.
Yes.
That you have to overcome that.
Good. Good. And it's not like I like that, but that's something very good for us teachers to get used to. But then what happens after that?
I think it's fun.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. It got fun.
Good. Thank you.
I was just going to say, yeah, after, and it also opens it up to the children being more susceptible to
Or
other
adults.
things. Or adults, but
Yes.
I'm speaking, or whatever.
Yeah, I agree, susceptible to all these things. So, yes, sir.
I would just say it helped having other people with you
Yep.
doing it, like it felt less out there.
Yes. And so what's important to say is that the whole thing is to make the movement accessible. Because I understand, it's very important to realize that people are as afraid of dance as they are of math. And the joke that Carl and I have made is that we took the thing that makes you feel clumsy and the thing that makes you feel stupid, and they sort of ameliorate each other.
It gives you a way to interact with others that you never have before.
Yes.
I've never danced with Tom.
Good. So now, I'm not going to do this, but what it would be next with whoever's doing it would be, we would write down everybody would say the order they did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, yes, we do it. And I'd say, okay, we have these. In this case, we'd probably have maybe 6 orders. And I'd say, is that all of them? And then there'd be an argument. And the argument is the most important part. Not the answer, the argument. 16, 38, 24, height. And so we keep going on all these things, right? Then we try and figure it out, and I don't care how the young people or adults figure it out. I just want them to figure it out. I've seen everything from writing it all down to color coding it to, and then you see, oh, this is the way people think and process information. Then we get to this thing, oh, well, the first time, how many choices do we have? 4. Oh, and the second one, because you picked one, it's 3, and then it's 2. And then people somehow get to what we later call factorial. But we never start with saying what the word is, because sometimes math words are terrifying and turn people's brains off. But as Julian pointed out very, very well, when people get afraid, we go, wait a minute, go back to the dance, do it. Did you do a permutation? Oh, what's permutation? Oh, it's everything reordered, but you use one of each. You did it. The whole class did it. You can't tell me you don't know what the idea is, right? And so this sort of undeniable reality, and also the fact that they're not just abstract numbers. A movement and how you get from one to the other gets a personality to it. And an order is different from another order, right? And so those are crucial things. Now, the other thing is, there are lots of different directions this could be taken, and Rachel was telling me about ways she had done it in her class. Once you have choices, they can go to probability, it can go to combinations, all of which are in the broader area of combinatorics in mathematics. Take it away, Rachel.
Okay. So I actually was brought onto the Pattern Play project to help evaluate the effectiveness of the project. So I actually didn't get to attend the class all the time and do these cool things and meet on weekends, right? So I get to come in and ask the students to do a math test or have it do the interview with them or just observe how the class is going and things like that. So basically what we wanted to see, do the students learn mathematics in this kind of setting? And the question I wasn't interested in, but I'll comment on, do the students learn dance in this setting? And do they learn it as well or better than students in a traditional setting? So some of the things I can currently speak to and some of the things we're in the middle of gathering data on, but I do want to speak to the dance piece. Do the students learn dance? So my whole study is about, do they learn math? And do they learn it as well as they would in the math class or better than that? But what I was interested in is they learn dance too. So I was invited to come to the class as much as I wanted and observe. And when I came, Erik always made a really good point that I needed to participate in the activity to really understand what was going on. The same claim we made to you. For you to understand what we're doing, you have to participate. So the beginning of the class, the first week, I could do I did dancing permutation with them. The next, it was a couple weeks I didn't go, and then I was there again. We were doing the hustle. And that moves pretty fast, hence hustle. And what was interesting about it is I was like, oh no, I need to see that again before I try it. And the students were like, yep. And they're like doing it, and they're making mistakes, but they know that they're going to figure it out once they've done it a couple times. They'll see how they make a mistake. Erik will have them look at how each other are doing that and give them feedback. They'll figure it out. So they have this mindset of, we're just going to try and do it. And I'm coming with this mindset of, I would like to do it perfect before I do it, right? But I can already tell that the students have a different mindset than I do, and that's just week 2 or 3, whenever you guys are hustle. And then, as the semester progresses, I gotta attend less and less, because I have classes I'm teaching and stuff like this. So, every time I go back, what I find is that the students are at a higher level of dance and problem solving than they were the last time I was there. And it's noticeable because I'm only 30 down then. So the last time I attend, we're doing these little ballet leaps. And it was like my worst fear. I took ballet as a 4th grader, my teacher quit, But Erik says to me, you need to experience it, right? So I'm doing this. The entire class is looking at me like, who is the dumb person that just decided to start coming to this class again, Because I can't dance as well as them. They have completely surpassed me. So the rest of what I'm going to say is about how the students are learning math. But I just wanted to comment that they are learning dance in this environment too. Much better than, I should have kept going to the class at the point, but, okay. So here's what I'm collecting and have collected on the class. So the students, when they began the pattern play class, they took a standard mathematical assessment. questions that would generally be in a Math 1030 class anyways. They took 5 questions tests at the beginning and at the end of the class. And now Julian is also teaching a control section of Math 1030 this semester. It's just a regular Math 1030. I mean, he's fabulous, but it's just a regular Math 1030 class. Okay. And so his students also took a pre and a post test, so we can say something about the growth of the pattern play students in comparison to a traditional class. So what we currently see is that students improved in their math ability in this pattern play class. But we're in the process of being able to say is how does that compare to a general growth of math understanding? That I can't speak to because Julian's students haven't taken the post test yet. So, another thing that we did at the beginning of the class is we asked the students to draw themselves doing mathematics. This comes out of an assessment tool, Draw a Scientist prompt. It's been used for a long time. We adapted it for this idea. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that because it's just interesting, the themes that are coming out of those pictures. So we'll get back to that. The students also took an attitude survey, so they just answered a few questions, statements like, I think math is enjoyable. And they rank if they agree or disagree, things like that. I think math involves a lot of memorization, and they rank their level of agreement. So again, what we saw in the pattern play students is their attitudes towards math improved during this course. We're in the process of saying, did they improve the same, better, or worse than a student in a traditional class? We can't say that. Then we also did semi-structured interviews with the students, and that's at the end of their class, or towards the end of the semester. So I came in, they were able to interview in pairs, and I gave them these non-standard math tasks. I should have brought some of them for you to look at. But they're a question that they've never really thought of before. One of them is if 2 people were shaking hands and each person had 3 hands. It's just an absurd thing to think about. They just look at me like, are you serious? You know? So how many different ways for them to shake hands? And we're interested if they wanted to get up and act it out, if they drew a picture, if they're trying to just blindly apply a formula, these sorts of things. So the interviews are really looking at the problem-solving strategies that the students are using. We haven't done the post-interviews with the control group yet, but what I can tell you, I teach Math 1030, and the problem-solving strategies that the pattern play students were using, I wish my students would use. Because they would say, well, I don't know. Let's see. And they start drawing a little here, and they draw a little there. They act it out. They talk to each other. Say, I think we're onto a pattern here. Let's continue this, right? A lot of my students would say, I don't know. I'm done with this one, right? Or I think this is where we applied that formula, right? And they just try to mindlessly put it into the formula. So what I know just from anecdotal, having taught students in Math 1030, we're seeing problem-solving strategies come out of the pattern play students that we don't generally see. And I'm expecting that we won't see in the control group, but I don't exactly know yet. So don't quote me on the analysis of the interviews, because it's just what I think is going to happen. And then we also videotape every single class, and we're in the process of, if we find that indeed the pattern play students are exhibiting greater problem-solving strategies, we want to look at those class videos and say, what about the class produced that? And so Julian and Erik have a lot of ideas about what they were doing. We also just want to approach it from a qualitative research standpoint of describing that case study, what they did that was different than what we normally do in math classes. So I want to talk to you about the drawing prompt though. So I want you to think about, if I asked you to draw yourself doing mathematics, what you would draw. What kind of things would come to mind? Yeah, and what comes to mind? You would just
I'd have
be
a
there.
piece of paper and I'd be writing something down.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else?
I would draw standing in front of the board.
Okay, at the board, yeah, yeah. What else?
Full formality.
Sitting down at the desk with my head down.
So a lot of working and writing, yeah.
See, my big math problem I did in the last year was I built stairs in and so I picture myself in my shop and I've got a T-square and I'm writing things down and it was very hard, very difficult. I figured it out.
Nice, cool, okay. So that would be a really fabulous picture for ever saw that. I now know what that would mean, right? So we saw a lot of people sitting, writing at desks with like kind of question marks going on. That was a theme that we definitely are picking up in these pre-test pictures. And I'm only going to talk to you about the pre-test stuff. We have not analyzed the post-test because we're still lacking part of them. But we also saw some really clear emotions that the students were portraying. Like, ah! Like that one came up a lot, right? Tears, you know, like 50 question marks on the page, and a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, a lot of overwhelming sorts of feelings. And then I wanted to share with you some of the most remarkable drawings. This one, you can see what's going on. This paper has a lot of like math symbols on it. None of them really mean anything, they're just little symbols. So it's an empty desk where she's supposed to be sitting doing her math, but she has escaped to her happy place instead. The students, let me just say, they have no more than 10 minutes to do these drawings. Most of the time it's like 5. I'm there like, please, come on, Julian has to go back and teach. Please draw quickly, you know? Like, these are really fast. As we originally saw this as a yellow brick road until we started looking closer. This is barbed wire, and it's a chain link fence. To get from math to her happy place, she had to scale a chain link prison fence. Like, that's pretty powerful emotion for 5 minutes. What comes to your mind? Escaping over a barbed wire fence. Like, that's kind of a lot, right? Prepare yourself. This one disturbs the whole research team. I find it very angry.
Look at the numbers.
Yeah, so she has all these just, and again, there's no, like the numbers don't make any sense. They're just a whole bunch of symbols and numbers, and then just squiggles everywhere to say she has no idea what's going on, and apparently she's come to a point of anger about this sort of confusion that's going on. But we also have anger displayed in a little bit less terrifying way. Your students sitting at a desk working with some implied swear words going on.
Permutation of the question?
Yeah. You kind of think that's not what she meant. Okay, so of the 44 pre-test drawings that we're seeing, 36 of them made a point of communicating clear emotions, which I think is so interesting because as a math teacher, the percentage of the time that I spend dealing with students' emotions, like 0.5% of the time, like when I'm handing out Kleenexes in my office when they spontaneously start crying. Like that's it. That's the only way I deal with emotions in my class. But what they're telling us is when I think about mathematics, I have very clear emotions. Okay? 29 of those emotions were clearly negative. Okay? That's a lot. I didn't expect to see emotions communicated in these pictures to the degree that we are. Okay? Only 6 communicated positive emotions, and then some were just neutral. They were just sitting at a desk working. Okay. And then 43 out of the 44 students drew no one else in their picture at all, just themselves. And my student researcher that's working with me said, well, you did say draw yourself doing mathematics, right? And I said, yeah. Had I asked you to draw yourself playing soccer, would there have been maybe some other people on the field? Right? The idea is mathematics is thought of being not a team sport. But the one person that did draw someone else in the picture, don't get too excited. It says teacher, it got cut off a little bit. And it says blah, blah, blah. I couldn't tell. And they have only a beak.
I don't even have a bottom.
But what comes out of this idea is, in our traditional math classes, we deal with this, and that's it. And the students are communicating in their pictures that there's a lot more going on when they think about themselves doing math. And now I'll step away and let someone else talk. Oh, it's,
Oh, really? No, but we should, okay, because you haven't had a chance yet, I wondered, because we only have a few minutes.
I'll catch up.
Okay.
So I think what I took away from this experience and also Erik was that we applied critical thinking in a non-traditional way. So when we were doing that dance activity, the question is, how many different ways can you perform all those different moves? And so you come up with a math formula, you could write it out, you could perform it. So when I said, well, what happens if you try this, you know, plug in a number, that didn't speak so well to them. But if I said, well, what happens if we try to do this, let's do it, that spoke a little bit more to them. So maybe now that fragment makes a little bit more sense, you know. So we could say, let's do it. But overall, the collaborative project, any collaborative project, is taking one idea from another field and, you know, merging it with another field. And so I think that there's a lot of time that needs to be spent in the merging of two ideas, and we did that. Our idea was to slow it down a little bit and to have a focus on understanding one thing at a time. And so really, it took a lot of time to explain one detail and move on. But having them understand one thing well is something that we spent a lot of time on. And because, you know, when we did those movements, right, there's a lot of group interaction. You worked with your peers, and like Rachel was saying, there was no one else in those pictures, but not only did they work with their peers on their movements, they worked with their peers on their math homework. So they used the other students as resources. And I'd just like to end it with my contribution, or the last thing that I say, with one of my favorite quotes here, and that's from Erik and Carl. It says that first, embodying the problem is more memorable, it's social, it makes the mathematical ideas more accessible. And so I just wanted to end with that.
So I had the privilege of being able to assemble different pieces of slides for this presentation. So I got to see Julian's comments before I had to make up my own, and I said, oh, hey, those are all right. So what I worked with Erik was not a math course. It was how do we parallel science and dance into this. I just lost the name of the course.
You mean the moving company?
Moving company. Thank you. I was thinking MC. What
Yeah.
MasterCard? No. So moving company is a community engaged course that takes a whole year, and it's supposed to be based on some kind of theme, some kind of community involvement. 3 of the answers from that course are here. Erik said to me, there's a longer story, hey, let's do this with science and dance parallel. And I said, I'm on sabbatical, I don't want to spend too much time. He said, oh, don't worry about it. And it's turned out to be the one great reason for me to come to campus all year, and has really affected me in profound ways, and I really admire the work of Erik and the dancers. And I say that not looking them in the face so I don't get choked up when I say that. But I want to remark about the interdisciplinarity of the project. And yes, everything that Julian said, it's great for students. But for me personally, because it's, frankly, as a teacher, it's not always about students. Sometimes it's about me and what I like to do. I got to play on a dance floor. I got to lie down on a stage. I got to see how instruction works in other completely different scenes from what I experienced. And often I was sitting there or standing or stretching or sitting on the floor doing something that I don't usually do and thinking, how would this happen in physics lab? Completely differently from this. And I can take something away from that. And I get to be in a dance performance. And I don't get tired of saying that, because it may not ever happen again. But I also got to recognize that these things that we do in science and in mathematics and in dance and in visual arts, we're all basically just trying to figure out our existence in one way or another. Those things we do have in common. And when I kind of see it in that context, it helps me better understand what my purpose as an instructor at the university is all about. So we wanted to kind of spit these things out at you so that we would have time to have some other broader discussion, I think, of what interdisciplinarity is. Because spell check doesn't recognize it. So what the hell is it? And I think this would be a good time to kind of open up the floor for questions, but also just general discussion. What is interdisciplinary, and more specifically, what does it mean on this campus now and in the future?
So this is sort of answering your question and sort of not, but I just want to put in a plug for the body of motion performance. I saw it last week and it's super, super, super awesome.
And I'm gonna hand out some flyers about
Yeah,
that. too.
so you want to go see it if you haven't. And it is interdisciplinary. It kind of, watching that program will open your mind to, because you're going, I went to this thinking, physics and dance. This will be interesting. And it really, really was.
And you saw it with 1,000 elementary students.
Yes, who were, from where my vantage
Which was
point,
great.
were absolutely silent and absolutely drawn in to the whole performance. It was so noisy before, I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. They were spot on.
And we're also, I should say, the dancers were integral to the creation of it with Adam and myself. And we're gonna be performing for 4 school districts. Ogden, we already did Salt Lake City, Weber County on Thursday, and then at the end of the semester, we're all driving to Vernal to perform for a primarily Native American middle school audience. And I should also say that one of the working titles for this presentation Adam gave was a dancer, a mathematician, and a physicist walk into a bar.
With alternative spellings for bar. It was really
Oh, wow.
Yeah, clever.
Other thoughts about it?
Yeah.
I have a question. Did this change your pedagogy, either of you, in your non-interdisciplinary classes? Like, will you include dance, for example?
So I haven't included dance in the control group, for example. Yeah. In fact, I was asked not to by 2 people.
For research reasons, not personal.
You dance, you're dead.
So I think it's a little bit hard to account for the time requirements that's necessary for some of those activities. I think it would be fun to incorporate those activities in different ways, though, that perhaps didn't need the dance component. But I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea to do some of that.
So problem solving, but not necessarily the dance.
Yeah, I think that what you're missing, though, is some of the group components. Like, if you really want to see your fellow student as a resource, you need to interact with them during the lecture period. But it's quite hard to allow for the time that takes in a 3-credit-hour course. You know what I mean? Like, to do the dance means that I need more time.
I've implemented 3 or 4 different activities in my class since I've seen it in Eric's class.
And I'm currently on the sabbatical that Eric moved. But I'm only kidding. But I will, and I'm not sure exactly in what ways, but there are things like, simple things, like when we get into the dance studio, it's, hey dancers, let's get to do this. And I think about my physics lab, and I never say, hey physicists, let's get together. And I think that's a real, even that subtle thing is something I will try to utilize in some way. Or the way that when Eric's choreographing, it's kind of this harvesting of, you have any of these 3 people in the back do some improv, and he'll look at that improvisation of some kind of phrase, and that will be kind of used for possible choreographic components of a full piece. That's something, we kind of do the opposite in physics or chemistry. We say, you do this, 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 and this, instead of show me what you have and we'll take it. So I'm rethinking some of the things that we've based on that experience.
Also, other than just the actual activities themselves, which I have implemented, the idea that, and it seems strange that they didn't occur to me before, but the student being a whole person in my class and not just a brain that I need to shove things into, has changed how I talk to students. Like, a lot of my students have really severe math anxiety, like all math students do apparently, or most math students do. So talking to them about like the time I flip my car over on reactions and the same exact thing happens. Like they remember some tragic event that happened in tragedy, and their brains just shut off. And so we get to talk about what that feels like. And the student said to me, that means so much that you know what it feels like of what I'm going through. And I just never thought to think about the anxiety they're experiencing.
The positive way of saying it is that people think with the range of their faculties, and that might be interpersonal, or it might be artistic, or it might be reflective, or it might be physical, or it might be symbolic, or it might be et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When we're working on something, we tend to use all of those. And that dealing with the whole person is calling into existence, acknowledging these possibilities, that you can use all these things, so you don't have to be afraid that we're only letting you use one. And so I think it's a way of inviting these range of skills and methods to the question. And so that they start to use those things, be it interpersonal or physical or et cetera. That we bring, math and science are too important to not bring to bear everything that a person has to the issue. And that's true for anything you study.
I teach arts integration for elementary teachers, and one of the justifications we give to throughout the U.S. is that integration saves time because you can teach two things at once. But that's not what I'm hearing here. I'm hearing that it takes more time.
Well, I hear what Julian was saying. I'm not sure. I think that is true in many cases. I don't think it's true in all cases, but I have to work on that myself. I would tend to agree with your statement, certainly when I work with teachers, because I would like them to do music and biology at the same, both, instead of one or the other. I would make that encouraging. And I think the dance science project is a good example of us doing both at the same time. We don't have the same assessment table that Rachel has, but I think it's a good example of having them side by side.
I think it can go in either way, and as somebody who tours nationally teaching teachers and children K through college, when it works well, the interesting thing that all teachers deal with, and I think mathematics teachers maybe more than anybody else, is this idea of, you remember what we did last week, and now we're gonna build on that. Oh, you don't remember, so let's do this. Well, I think that a well-placed, the idea isn't that all mathematics should be replaced with the arts. The idea is that this experiential thing, the human memory is connected to experience deeply, and human understanding is connected to experience, that the experience can be this platform on which to go to other things, be it symbolic or other artistic things. And then the accessibility, the palpability of the physical thing can make things more efficient, because you invest that time early, but then you don't have to redo it all over and over. You say, oh, you guys do that permutation you did, now we're gonna remind, this is what we're talking about. So that is what can happen, but it is not always what happens.
And I've been amazed at the memory that Erik relies on embedded in the dancers. So he'll refer, if we did something on Tuesday and Thursday and on Fridays, remember, where are we in that thing we were doing on Tuesday? What happened after this? And the dancers have a memory of where that piece is and what it was they were doing in between part A and part C. Even if Erik doesn't remember it, the dancers do remember it, and not in an intellectual way, but in a kinesthetic.
And there are studies, neuroscientific studies, that talk about muscle patterning in relation to memory and all. I mean, this is not just us. There's a constellation of studies and work that connect to these.
I would say two things. One is that these students didn't have that base, like I'm wearing this and this, and I can just refer to them. We had to build that base of these two are connected. And my point is that building that connection between those two things takes a lot of time, because discovery takes a lot of time and a lot of experimentation.
So I have a student that came, I work with training teachers how to teach math. And we were working with quadrilaterals in a particular lesson, and she said, oh, this works out great because I'm going to do my arts integration lesson with this. And I said, really, show me what you're going to do. And she had this picture of flowers. They were all composed of different quadrilaterals. And she said, I'm going to have the students color this. And I said, well, how is that either art or math, right? They're not really creating anything, and they're really not studying quadrilaterals, even though they're coloring them. Right? And this was like 4th grade, so we would be expecting a little bit higher level. And so like doing that kind of arts integration doesn't require any time except printing the paper, but thinking about how to actually use an arts, a creative arts activity meaningfully to really get at the concept of math would take a little time initially to design that kind of activity, and that's the time that Erik and Julian spent, was how do we get these concepts really through in a meaningful way. But then the next time they go to teach the course, the time investment is made.
I think Colleen's trying to wrap things up. but
Well,
some other
yeah,
questions.
let's take one more question.
You had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so I do a lot of group work in my classes, and one of the toughest things is building a culture in the classroom of doing that. And I'm just thinking about you guys, you had 2 topics to teach, and there's some efficiency in that, and that you can build the culture, and, you know, you had 6 hours, right?
Yes.
To do this, right, so you had 6 hours a week to build this culture, and then for what I've experienced is the students build momentum, and as the course progresses, they continue to develop as independent learners, and then your role diminishes as they become learners on their own, right? And which is what we all want, right? And so if I teach 2 sequential classes, which I sometimes do in chemistry, a lot of those students from that first class will take the second class, and then in the second class, my role is just to be smaller and smaller, right? Just a mentor, and I think that's really cool about combining classes and leveraging that development of people and their, you know, and their softer skills that are important for all learning.
I would say 2 things. One, those softer skills are what are most important. People talk about the business world, those are the things that are the most important thing, that are highly valued. I think Rachel's comment about how pattern play students dealt with those oral questions and that they kept driving at it was because of the culture that was created, just as you do in the class. And I also think, just think about the energy and the mood of this class when you all were moving versus, you know, the other mode. And it really is, the dance becomes a way of not without saying it, of modeling what it means to work with other people. And I feel strongly that model is what they applied in the mathematics. Without even having to describe it, that I would even say that tone and that mood is the way that they started to come at the math.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Let's give them a round of applause.